Hello and welcome. As always, it's been quite a while, but I've still been playing the game pretty frequently. Um, so the past few months, I've still been playing Mathmech. Previously, there was a Duelist Cup where a username Freedom or Freedume if you read the katakana in Romaji. Um, so I just played his build. So pretty much you can see here looks kind of standard, the non-engine, nothing too crazy. We have a random extender as Sakitama, but what I find more interesting about this is the choice of extra deck. So there's some giga combos in this. We have Protectcode, we have Firewall, and we have VLAN Hydra, and we still have our best bud Singularity. So I think I wanted to try this out, and I gave it like 2 months. There was actually another interesting build that I got to use in January, but I haven't gotten around to making a video on that. But we're gonna skip ahead and show the progression from like March, February, and April. So I've been playing this for quite a bit. As you can see, I have a little write up. I'll put it in the description. I had a really fast climb with this. 78 duels, but it's a short sample size. It's pretty crazy though, because usually I expect like 100 duels. But anyway, so taking this list, again, it'll be in description. I also have another one for April. And, it's basically copying his exact like we click here. This is exact. I took this exactly. I just net decked it completely. So he has the drolls and stuff, and a one ogre, and I just took it to ranked. Obviously, there's a different environment than what's called the Duelist Cup. But yeah, it's good to know. I feel like, I'm sure this is more well known in the Twitter sphere among OCG players. This guy probably has a name for himself in tournaments that he participates in. But I feel like there's not too much exposure on the TCG side. A lot of times when we see other lists, we kind of look at it, kind of judge it based on how closely it compares to our own list, and then we kind of don't really give it much thought after that. So I figured I'd take a step forward and play it myself, though I do have replays of that, but that's not what I'm gonna be focusing on. He actually this user Freedom, he has a blog, so we're just gonna read the blog and we're gonna poorly translate. We're gonna use poor translation, Google Translation. And he actually, but like the nice thing is we're gonna do our best to parse what he's trying to explain, and based on my experience I'll try to correlate that, and then we can see the combos in action. He has them pretty linked up in new YouTube, but basically we're gonna read this. I'm gonna share my thoughts, and then if there's something, just keep in mind this is just a Google Translate. There's probably far better translations out there, or people who are more qualified to translate to Japanese, but I'm gonna just make this simple for myself and try to obviously if there's something that I don't really understand, I will make sure to explicitly say that I'm not sure what he exactly is saying, but here's my thoughts. But I just wanted to share, because I've labbing this deck out. It's pretty interesting. I really like the deck. I have some thoughts too, some things that I don't agree with, so I did kind of pre-read this just to give myself like talking points, and just to be more focused, because but anyway, here's an article, and he said, so let's just start. Hello, this is Freedom. This time I would like to introduce a new development plan for the project type cutting machine that I have been using for about a month. So Protectcode. Okay, so I think basically he's just saying he's playing Protectcode Talker, and cutting machine is like, I think, the direct translation of Zanki, which is the OCG name for Mathmech. So kind of interesting. The original idea for VLAN Hydra was received from Mr. Riboyama, Master Duel Data. So I think I'm following this guy on Twitter. I'm not too sure. I haven't actually parsed his posts, but VLAN Hydra is pretty not very well known in the TCG start. Like, it's one of the earliest links. So VLAN Hydra is like, here, we'll check him out. We'll check VLAN Hydra. Ooh, I love this website, how I can just... So VLAN Hydra, so you gain 300 attack for each monster co-linked to this card. You target one link 3 or lower, co-link to this card, tribute it. Notice it tributes for effect. So it doesn't tribute for cost, and then you can Veiler it. So if you're co-linked to a transcode, you can't just Veiler this. Anyway, and if you do, special summon VLAN tokens equal to the tributed monster's link rating. Also, you cannot special summon monsters with the same link rating as that targeted monster for the rest of the turn. So basically, you co-link this with transcode and tribute transcode, and you get 3 tokens. You're not allowed to special summon any link 3s afterwards. So that's the main use case. But this is an interesting card. I don't think it's really explored on the TCG side. But it does give you more options. I think one thing that to keep in mind is when you link climb with Mathmech, you don't have much rooms for IP. Is very hard to end on because IP Masquerena requires non-links to link summon. And when you link climb, you just have a bunch of links. So V-Line Hydra is cool because you can convert a link, link 3 like transcode, into tokens, which are non-links. So then those can easily be used for IP Masquerena. But that's not the purpose of this build. He's not playing IP. So so let's continue with the article. I would appreciate it if you could let me know if you find a route for further expansion. So I think that he's talking about comboing. If I think like they don't really have a word for, they don't really call decks combo decks. I noticed that they use expansion to refer to decks that can kind of like link together in certain steps to get a certain end board. What we would traditionally call a combo deck, or honestly, not many TCG players agree on what's a combo deck or not, especially if you're coming from MTG. But I'm not gonna get into that discussion. But the analog that I've noticed this word used in that context is for combo deck, and there's no disputing that this card kind of combos. You have to know some sequences to link climb. So yeah, this is a list. So as I showed you the previous list from the beginning of the video, it's pretty much this list. I just copied it and let's run it with Ring. So for the non-engine, I wasn't too focused on whether they worked or not because he's playing these in a different environment. He's likely playing just my thoughts like Crow and Drawn Lockbird. Or probably calls for Crossout, and then the bells he probably fit them in because I believe there was Bestials. He has another article where he talks about his Duelist Cup experience. So that's another thing we can talk about. But for now, let's just continue with this article. Here's a little caption. I didn't feel that Nabla was necessary, so I decided not to use it, and I will adjust a trigger slot that is used for triggers to suit the environment. Okay, so this is pretty agreeable. He didn't feel Nabla was necessary. And I think for a lot of times, there is a combo with Defensor, Firewall Defensor, where it's not traditionally your circular combo. When you go through Firewall Defensor, you go to Splash Mage, and then you have 2 level 4s, and you go into Alimbertion. Then you search Circular that way, and then Circular will send the Mathmech name, and then Alimbertion will revive. So sometimes people will substitute that step with sending Nabla, and when Nabla... it's in the graveyard, you can revive it with Alimbertion to tribute itself, and then Nabla can tribute itself for a 3rd name like Diameter. And then you just climb afterwards. So you have 3 Mathmech names, you search Superfactorial, you have Nabla, Diameter, and Circular Engrave. The thing is, you don't really need to do that step because you can just send Diameter, revive Diameter, could be Sigma, doesn't matter, and just link climb to Terahertz, and then Terahertz can send the 3rd name. So that's something that people newer Mathmech players don't really pick up on. That Terahertz, we'll see. I'll just pull him up. I think we should be familiar with Terahertz. Oops, wrong one. It can send any Cyberse monster from your deck or extra deck from the graveyard. So most of the time we're going to be sending to Save Worm from the extra deck, but you can send Mathmech names from your deck. That's what makes Terahertz so good, in my opinion. So when he says he didn't feel Nabla was necessary, I imagine that's the reason why. Because he can just use Terahertz. And in fact, he's probably sending the Save Worm and then the 3rd name with Terahertz. There's a bit of debate which one you prioritize first. I would, if I'm kind of scared of Called By on my opponent's turn, I would probably send a Save Worm first. Then send Terahertz, and then on my opponent's draw phase, I'll send a Mathmech name, whether it's Diameter or Sigma. So, and then when he says that he will adjust a trigger slot that is used for triggers to suit the environment, I feel like triggers is very commonly used to represent hand traps. I've seen some OCG players call things hand traps, but for the most part, I think the word they're using is for hand traps is triggers. So you can see all he's really saying is, yeah, you can adjust these. Crow, Veiler, Droll, Max, Ash. Okay, I mean, Ash and Max feel non-negotiable, but Bell, it's not too crazy. It's not too important. That these cards that he's playing aren't necessarily rigid. You can always adjust that. And that makes sense to me. Protected concept. So Protectcode, I'm assuming he's talking about. Instead of using top swing cards in the main deck, fight with the extra deck that can maximize your first run win rate and the main deck with many free slots. So I think I kind of vibe with this idea. So I think what he's saying is he's not playing multiplication. He's not playing Nabla. Those give you options, in the main deck. But if you notice, by cutting them, he has more room for hand traps. I believe this is 15. That's 5, 8, 11, 13, 14, 15. Yes, yeah. So that's 15. That's the most you can squeeze out. But, if you play multiplication, you might have to go up to 41. If you play Nabla, you might have to go up to 42. Or, interesting thing to point out, 3 Exceed is not legal currently. It got semi-limited. I assume, it's just a slight nerf to Mathmech, but we can get into that another time. But yeah, so he has room for 15. So that's why I like Singularity. People say, if you don't play Singularity, you have a free extra deck slot. But I don't like that logic because you're kind of equating main deck slots with extra deck slots. Like, you can play multiplication, even it takes some. You have a free main deck slot. If you don't play Singularity, you have a free extra deck slot. I don't really like that concept of a free extra deck slot. Is because the reason why you're playing this card is so you can save on main deck slots, and those I imagine are more valuable because they dictate how much space you have for non-engine. And if you don't have a certain amount of non-engine, 15 is pretty good, but I don't think it's that great. Like if you compare other decks that can play non-engine, and then they have to play bricks, it's Snake Eye. Snake Eye can play 18 non-engine, and they the reason why they can't go more is because they have mandatory engine requirements like the field spell. So they cannot continue. So they can't get more, but they could go more. Here 15 is kind of like, I'd say above average. 13 is a good number, but you'd want more, in my opinion. But 15 is good. But anyway, so basically what I kind of agree with this line of logic where you would focus on, all your end board comes from your extra deck. And obviously there's a trade-off, right? Like you see he's not playing multiplication. Multiplication being gone does, mean you can't OTK as easily. But as long as you have another way to OTK, then you should be fine. So we'll continue. So this concept is very, I think this is very desirable. So once you have more free slots in your main deck, you can play more non-engine. Most of the time when we have a free slot in the extra deck, it's just some corner case like, I got hit by Maxi, I'm going to make Baguska. It doesn't really, it improves our win rate versus a specific situation. But I would say when you play non-engine, you're also doing the same thing. But, these slots are very, very more desirable, Like it's okay if you don't make Singularity most of the time, but at least you have room for non-engine. Maybe it's because you have a bunch of more non-engine that you don't really need to make Singularity, right? So anyway, this is the starting line for the protected type concept. Currently, even if Zonki's extra deck is devised, the second attack win rate has almost reached a plateau, and there are only EX cards such as Update and Link Spider that can contribute to the second attack win rate. So that's kind of interesting. I think I'm not going to read too much into this only. And so this kind of goes into his concept where he believes the second attack win rate has reached a plateau. And the only way to improve that is to play Update Jammer, which because it's another way to OTK, or Link Spider, because that lets you OTK under Nibiru. I don't know if Link Spider really does help with that, because your opponent needs to time their nib really badly for Link Spider to be good, and you need an extender. The only time I've ever felt like I played around Nibiru with like Link Spider completely was when I played 2-access code, because the combo is you would use Link Spider use the Nibiru token for Link Spider, then you make an extender, and then you would make Crystal Heart to revive Link Spider. So that's since Link Spider is an Earth Link, then you would make Transcode, and then afterwards you would just revive Update Jammer. So yeah, you would have to. You would start with Update Access the first time, get nibbed, and then you would go the Crystal Heart combo into Transcode. It would be Splash plus Update Transcode that you would threaten OTK with. They nib you, and then you go into the Crystal Heart line, go into Transcode because you saved the Transcode, revive Update Jammer, and then go into a second access code, and then you win the game that way. So when your opponent is good, Link Spider, I feel like the only way to outplay your opponent is to literally play a second access code and Update Jammer. Another thing is, though, I mentioned he cut multi, and I think that actually does not reach a plateau when it comes to OTKing with an extra deck, because you can OTK with, like, one of the common ways to OTK I've done before with multiplication is you make Laplacian to, like, wipe your opponent's field, so they're left with like one monster, and like you protect it with diameter as well. So if the Laplacian wipe goes through, and then you can revive what's called Sigma Engrave or something like that, and then use those two monsters to climb directly into Terahertz, and then OTK that way. You can't do that. You can't really OTK with without multiplication. You need 3 monsters to OTK. So this plateau is true to an extent, but I think by cutting multi, you kind of lowered that plateau, or like you don't achieve that plateau. But anyway, nothing too crazy. Alrighty, so therefore, by filling the extra deck with expansion cards, so I imagine it's combo cards, extenders, or something like that, for the first player to make the first player's board more solid and removing impurities from the main deck, I believe this will improve the resistance to dross and the quality of the cards in hand, resulting in highest overall win rate. So yeah, that makes sense, you know. If you already believe the going second can only be improved by going second, the extra deck can only be improved so much, and you cut bricks, and you know you found it makes sense to make a stronger turn 1 combo. To me it makes sense. You know, whether I agree with that or not is like, it's somewhat of a different story, but I think that's true. So I think when he's saying resistance to dross, he's talking about Droll and Lockbird. And yeah, there are some combos where he you know, he has anti-Droll combos. So that makes sense. So yeah, you know, what's interesting is he does have cards that are bricks theoretically, like what's called like Guardian, but I think, you know, Defensor plays really well into Droll, so it's worth the risk. So but like things like multiplication, Nabla, they're kind of just normal summons. They help you play through things turn 1, but yeah, like, so basically his strategy is going second, you know, there's only so much to improve, but there's more to improve in the turn 1 combo. Yes. So here's an example of like seeming bricks that like don't achieve too much. So like he says, if the micro conflict that prevents you from drawing a hand like this is Valor and Crow, it will be a hand that can fight well even on the draw. So what he's saying is, if he had hand traps instead of these 2 cards, they would serve a dual purpose. Like, yeah, these improve his turn 1 board, right? Because you have conflict or something, like you just normal summon this link dude, and then special summon Exceed, and then, you know, you would probably set up like some Code Talker so you make this counter trap live. But at the same time, you know, going second, this is more risky. This card is blanking. It's like drawing Super Factorial. I hate drawing Super Factorial going second. You know, it turns a 6-card hand into a 5-card hand. you have to break the board or like access code spam and then set this card for it to be good. But you know, you don't get many options with this. But going second, if it was a hand trap, you know, Veiler and Crow, you can hopefully pare down your opponent's board, and then at the same time, probably normal summon one of these for Almirage, and then trigger this all the same, trigger this Exceed all the same. So I think I agree with that. You know, this is kind of, you know, cherry picking this hand, you know, but I'm not a fan of Microcoder and Conflict. Those cards kind of just serve to make a strong turn one board. But going second, it can be really bad. Like even if this card as an extender is very conditional, you need to have two bodies on the board to make Transcode Talker, and you don't play Code Talker to link with two bodies on the board. And at the same time, if you use this for Transcode Talker, it's also competing with Link Decoder, because that also needs to be linked with a Transcode Talker. So it's not, as far as link climbing goes, especially going second, it's not super amazing, but it can get Signet mining. So the newly adopted card this time is VLAN Hydra. Basically used to disassemble transformers and increase the number of monsters. So I think he's trying to say it tributes Transcode and he gets a bunch of tokens. Easy enough. This card was adopted in place of Heat Soul and is mainly used to harden the board in a downturn. So I'll be honest, I'm not too sure what this means exactly. I understand that he's cutting Heat Soul for VLAN. But I imagine my understanding of VLAN, it just makes a stronger turn one board. So there's probably some nuance that I'm missing, but I'm not sure about this phrasing that I understand. I mean, it's just the translation. All right, let's continue. By adopting this card, it became possible to go to the board of Singular plus Neo 10 from the first move of all one cards. Okay, so a little bit hard to parse, but you know, from playing this deck, I understand that what this is saying is, if you have a one card one of your one card combos through Circular can summon Singularity plus Terahertz with one card. Normally in regular Mathmech, or like without VLAN Hydra at all, you would need an extender to achieve this board. Superfactorial, Singularity, and Terahertz. But you can do this with one card, and that's Circular. So yeah, final board of one Circular. So as you can see, he demonstrates. And yeah, I think that's pretty crazy. I have my thoughts on VLAN, but we'll just continue. About the one kill method. So he cut Update Jammer. If you notice, his Decklist does not have Update Jammer. If there's space left, I'll put it in, but there aren't enough spaces. Yeah, unfortunate. This is pretty cuttable. You know, I've seen people want to ban Update Jammer, and I'm like, yes, please ban this card. I think it's very cuttable from the extra deck. I mostly OTK with Terahertz, for the most part. So under the constraints of Circular, Zanki, which is Mathmech, often uses the following 3 one-kill method. Multipliers are not used. So I think it's in the absence of multiplication, which is what I'm assuming multiplier is referring to. You have these common ways to OTK. Update access 4,300 times 2 plus or 5,300 times 2. So I think this is just update access code. Board surface removal possible, maximum 5 pieces. Bist care not possible. Okay, so I can actually parse this. So I assume he can pop 5 cards. Bist care not possible means this is Bestial. So you can attack twice with Update Jammer. And theoretically you can pop 5 cards, but you cannot beat a Bestial. Kuriha Neo 10. 61 times 2. So this is the classic. I love this OTK. This is okay. I do pull off all the time. And these 3 bodies though, compared to Terahertz ending multiplication, but we're not considering multiplication in these cases. Back cannot be removed, but can be cared for. Back cannot be removed, but can be cared. When they say care, that usually means playing around a certain like hand trap or interruption. Back cannot be removed. So I unfortunately cannot parse this, but maybe it's a Bestial or something. But anyway, I'll share my input. This Crystal Heart gives this Terahertz 2 attacks and piercing if this Terahertz sends an Earth monster to convert it to an Earth monster, basically. And you know, sometimes with Bestials, people will think they're cheeky by summoning them defense because you can't go into like access code to attack them or something like that. Sometimes they'll have like a Druid Worm, which is very, very difficult to deal with for access code to deal with. But Bystials only have 2,000 defense, and this 6,100 can attack twice. So that's 1,200, 200. So if you have 2 Bystials in defense, you still pierce for 8,200 damage, I believe. So you're still golden. So that's my input. I can't really parse this, but it's just my input. You know, this card can OTK through a lot of things in defense. It's very common, especially versus Snake Eye too. Singular access 8,300. So this is interesting. This is one line I'm not aware of. So what he's saying is board removal allowed up to 5 cards, graveyard removal allowed 1 card, Biscare not allowed. So what this guy is doing is this 8,300 is not like multiplication or anything. He uses Singularity Link 6 to link into access code. I've only had to do this once, but it's very, very good to know. I had enough bodies to make a transcode co-linked with access code to make Singularity as link material to put him at 8,300, and then the transcode boost puts him at 8,800. And there was a IP Masquerena, an attack that I impermed earlier, but I completely inted into what's called Veiler. I could, if I set up that like co-link with transcode to prevent Veiler from targeting, I would have done 8,800 swing over the imperm Masquerena, and that's 8,000 damage. I would have won. And the reason why it was so crazy, so imperative for me to do that was because I was dealing with Maxi. It was very convoluted, but I had all of the bodies, and unfortunately I messed up that combo, and that game has been wiped from existence out of shame. But we learn. But yeah, this is good to know. Even if you don't use Singularity as an end board, you can still use Singularity as a way to bounce stuff. And then you bounce stuff, then you use it as link material and you make this guy 8,300. That's very good. It's not very often that you can stagger removal like this guy's bounce. It's just 1 bounce. This guy's bounce, and then this guy's pop. That means they have to answer, the Singularity, and then you can just make this guy. And you notice he has a little lingery about protecting, so imperm is dealt with. Obviously, they can Bystial here, and then this guy's goobed, but it's just the different ways to OTK. This is my most common, in my opinion. This deals with a lot. 99% of cases, and it's unfortunate because it deals with so much. The only thing that really beats it in terms of like efficiency is terahertz and multiplication. The reason why I say it's unfortunate is because it's obsoleted such great cards, such fun cards such as Final Sigma. I'm sure everyone loves that card. It feels good to deal 1 shot, 1 damage. But unfortunately, we have more flexible end board supporting pieces, and that double as OTK pieces that Final Sigma cannot compare. But having too many options is a good thing. So it's not the end of the world. All of these required values are the same link value of 3. So you have to choose the appropriate one depending on the opponent's board. As you can see, so I assume you need 3 bodies to achieve all of these. And that makes sense to me. I already know that this requires 3 bodies. This too also requires 3 bodies. This I'm not too familiar with because I've only done it once and I messed it up. And in fact, I needed way more bodies to achieve the thing that I needed to win in that really specific game state. But this is good to know. As you can see from the comparison, there's not much advantage of update access, and it reduces the number of cards drawn when going through G. Other than that, I don't think there's anything noteworthy about it, so I decided not to bat it. So he said this first combo, in the absence of multiplication, is not that great. Maybe your opponent draws less under Max C, which is true. This is kind of why I like the Terahertz and multi, because it's not foolproof, but it's simpler. It kind of draws less under Max C, but like it's definitely definitely easier to achieve than less Max E draws than Crystal Heart Tarot. That plays into a lot of Max E draws. So yeah, you need 3 monsters to achieve those 3 OTKs, and so he's just saying the access with exception of this in bold, drawing less under max E, which is one advantage of Final Sigma. It feels redundant, is what I'm understanding. Now he goes into the changes. The changes are as follows, mainly in the form of extending the downward development. So interesting. He used downturn at the beginning, and I didn't really understand. Development I understand as like the combo. Personally, I think that it is a strengthening element over a weakening element. So I will prioritize Hydra over Heatzel and adopt it. There is reinforcement. There is, and I think he's going into the pros and cons. I think I understand. So here's the pros. Parallel Exceed, only Firewall. So if you open just Parallel Exceed, you get Firewall Dragon added to the final board. So yeah, it's like, it's triple Firewall basically. Parallel Exceed plus 1 Extender. You can collect the first trigger even without Nabla. So what he's saying here is when you trigger Parallel Exceed, you have to use like a hand trap or something. And it'll be more clear when we look at the videos. But basically, you normal summon a hand trap, and then you combo to do triple Firewall, which is OG Firewall Dragon, Neo Tempest Terahertz, and Singularity. But if you open an extender, you can use Firewall Dragon to add back whatever you normal summoned. Whatever hand trap you normal summon. So that's good to, that's good to like, yeah, that's great. You don't minus. Well, you don't minus. I wouldn't call it a minus, but your options do not change. And anyway, so let's continue. Defensor, only singular instead of 1 draw. So if you open Defensor, you get Singularity. You Singularity per terahertz, but you don't get an intermediate Heat Soul draw, which is very useful. Circular only, you get Singular instead of... So basically, Defensor and Circular, I believe, are identical combos. You just don't get the Heat Soul draw. Circular plus 2, final board, you add Ringly added to it. I believe that's Lingeribo. I don't really... Is that really a pro? You open 2 extenders? Like, you get 1 Link 1 that can potentially negate evenly? Maybe I'm misinterpreting, but to me, that's not... If it's Lingeribo, I don't think that's really worth Circular plus Defensor. I imagine because Defensor is like 2 bodies. Isn't this the same point? If this is Lingeribo added to the final side, I don't know. I just think this makes sense as a pro. Singularity, I think these are good pros. That's something good to know, but I don't... When you have 2 extenders, I don't even know it's worth investing in them. Investing in 1 is good, because sometimes... Because you have to also think, when you have 2 extenders, one of them is likely being used to play through a hand trap. So anyway, Weekend. I assume that's the cons. Defensor plus 2, 1 draw disappears. So it's just the opposite of saying you don't get a... Prayer Heat Soul cannot be performed if the first attack deployment is stopped. So I think that's a like when you get like Imperm on Splash Mage and then you have an extender, and you can only make Heat Soul or something like that. I assume that's what he's saying. You can use Heat Soul to draw 2 to make up for the investment, but it's not an end board, but it's kind of funny. Prayer Heat Soul. I wonder if that just means like, yeah, a last ditch Heat Soul. That is pretty decent. One time I got stopped on what was it? I got stopped one time. Like I believe, okay, I remember now. So when I went to normal summon with Almirage to trigger Parallel Exceed, my Parallel Exceed got ashed. So what makes this situation unique is you can't go Link Decoder. You can go into Splash Mage using the Almirage plus the Almirage plus the ashed Parallel Exceed. But when you revive the Exceed with Splash Mage, it's no longer level 4. And Link Decoder specifies level 4 lower Cyberspawn. It's now level 8 because its effects are negated by Splash Mage. And because of that, you need to go into Link 3. And it's happened to me once. I could not get Heat Soul. So I ended up doing something dumb, like transcode, revive, splash mage. And that is not good compared to Heat Soul, because at least Heat Soul, despite being, you know, not a real end board, I mean, neither is transcode and splash mage, but at least Heat Soul will draw into something. So 1 second. Alrighty, I'm back. So let's just keep going. This is a pretty decently long article. This is probably going to take a while, but all right. Deployment route. I only list the most frequently used expansions for each hand. I want to be able to complete this note with just this note, so it may contain the same expansions as the previous note. So he had a previous article. He's just going to go through some combos. Thank you for understanding. If you have already used a Protectcode type, you can cover the parts that have changed in Hydra by looking only at developments marked with star. So that's very nice of him. So let's just look at the star ones, because so this is parallel exceed only, and yeah, so let's look at this combo. So yeah, so this is where you would normal summon a hand trap for Almirage, and then you're gonna trigger exceed. All right, so you go Alan Bershin. That's kind of a no-brainer. You're gonna get circular here. So you dump the. If you notice, he dumped subtraction instead of like diameter or sigma in this situation. That's good to know. Like that's good to point out. So then he goes directly into Splash Mage afterwards, and then revives the Alan Bershin. So remember the subtraction in the graveyard. This is kind of risky, in my opinion, going directly into Splash Mage so that you can trigger circular with the Splash Mage revive. Because they can get impermed, and then that stops the Splash Mage. So, I think I would tribute Alan Bershin first to revive the subtraction, get super factorial first with circular, and then go into Splash Mage. So yeah, this is no brainer combo. You're gonna link combo. So this is the interesting part. So now you go to Protectcode. Let me go back a bit. So you have Splash Mage, one body, another body, and Transcode. So when you have Splash Mage, Transcode, and two bodies, you go into this line that I chunk as the Protectcode line. So you ladder into Protectcode, and then afterwards you go into Firewall Dragon. So you'll see right now, he's going to go to Firewall Dragon. And now Protectcode can revive itself by banishing one link 1 and one link 2. It'll co-link with the Firewall. So if you notice at the beginning, he started with Almirage. If you do not start with Almirage, you cannot go in this line. Because for one reason is link decoder banishes itself, so it cannot be counted as the link 1. So you need to have a spare link 1, whether it's Lingaribo or Almirage, for Protectcode to revive itself. So we're going to see this. Yeah, so there's the banished Almirage. Now here, so this is why he preloaded this subtraction. He's going to use Firewall Dragon. It's co-linked to 2 cards. And he's going to add back 2 cards in the graveyard. He's going to add back Exceed and the subtraction. So, and I think this is the only instance where you can special summon from hand when you link off transcode that's linked to what's called Firewall Dragon. It'll trigger Firewall Dragon's effect to special summon from hand, and then now you can go into Crystal Heart. I think that's the only time you can do that. So if you miss this step, you're going to miss out on the rest of the board. So you revive. And so this is interesting. Now we have the VLAN Hydra tribute transcode line. Now we're going to get 3 tokens. And then the subtraction that we just added back is going to special summon itself. And then from here, we're going to go into Singularity. And Singularity will get triggered and revive. You'll see. So yeah, it triggers Singularity. Just so you needed. So one thing to keep in mind, I believe. So I believe Singularity requires effect monsters. So you needed to go to Lingaribo to convert one of the tokens into effect monsters, and then use all the effect monsters, Firewall, Lingaribo, and I believe Crystal Heart, to make Singularity, and then use everything else for Terahertz, which requires Cyberse monsters. It doesn't care about effect monsters. And then that triggers Singularity to revive whenever a card that it points to is sent to the graveyard. Then you bring back the Firewall, and now you're co-linked. And so you got to make sure that this... So you only have 2 names in the graveyard. Uh-oh. Ignore that. So that terahertz must send diameter. You only go through 2 cards in the graveyard. Yeah, so, and then on your opponent's turn, you can send to save form. So yeah, Singularity, Neo 10, Firewall Dragon plus Super Factor. It's pretty impressive. With the Firewall Dragon, you can get a triple Firewall board. Obviously, that's through no interruptions, but it's just good to know. You can always pivot to... That's why I like the Protectcode plus Firewall line, because you just... what's called? You can go into terahertz after adding back with Firewall. So if you send out Singularity before Neo 10, if you use Nabla, whose Firewall Dragon will remain on the final stage, you can trigger recovery, but I do not recommend it. So I'm not too sure what he means. Maybe he's saying you can use Nabla to tribute itself to trigger Singularity before you make terahertz, and then you revive, whose Firewall Dragon will remain on the final stage. You can trigger recovery, but I do not recommend it. So I'm not too sure. But he does not recommend it, so I'll take his word for it. So Parallel Exceed +1. So okay, it's the same exact combo we saw today, we saw just now, but because he has an extra extender in hand, which is this +1, then he just adds back the hand trap that he used for Almirage. So we'll just watch it. All right, so normal summon the hand trap, Almirage. It's the exact same combo. I'm not lying to you. So yeah, you send. So here's where it deviates. He does the Protectcode line, so he's gonna revive Firewall. So now the Firewall Dragon add back is going to be Veiler and subtraction. It's gonna be Veiler and subtraction, because this extender is gonna substitute the Exceed that Firewall Dragon would have summoned from hand. Yeah, and it's just the same exact combo after this. It's just he gets to keep a Veiler instead, which is good. In fact, if I'm being honest, I think this is overkill. I'm gonna put in my thoughts, interject my thoughts. I think when you have an extender, I go for Firewall plus terahertz. But when you just have Circular by itself, I just stop at the Protectcode line and add back the hand trap that I just used for Almirage. So you can stop at, blah blah blah, blah blah blah. Let me go to the transcode revive. So when you're adding, so when you get to this point, this Firewall Dragon can add back. You don't want to add back the subtraction because you want it for super factorial. You can add back the hand trap and exceed or something like that, and then you just don't need to. You can use all 3 of these for terahertz. So for me, and then you can just go into equation. You could probably use this to go into Singularity. So for me, I feel like this is kind of redundant. You know, you get the triple Firewall board, but you also keep the hand trap, and you don't have to play an extender to get the hand trap back. So I think let's go back. We go back to this combo. You know, this combo with the Firewall Exceed and all that stuff. Parallel Exceed, normal summon hand trap to summon Parallel Exceed. I think you just stop at revive Protectcode, add back the hand trap, and Parallel Exceed, and then you just go all of them for solo terahertz. In my opinion, that's more reasonable. It still justifies the the Protectcode package. But yeah, so this is we'll take a look at Defensor only. So notice you start with link 1. This link 1 is going to eventually get banished for Protectcode. Circular. So all roads lead to Circular. So now he tributes the Alan Bershin to trigger this. So I'm kind of curious why he didn't do that in the previous, but he's probably just showcasing combo. But this is exactly what I would do instead. Rather than rely on... but yeah. So we're going to go to the Protectcode Firewall line. If you start chunking these combos, they're not that complex, in my opinion. They're complicated, but you can break them down into bite-sized pieces. Like, this is already familiar. See, he banished the Lingering Bow. So he adds back that. He's going to summon... This isn't quite Parallel Exceed, but it's still a card you add back to special summon off Firewall. Yeah, so then you sequence that. So okay, the sequence here is a little bit different. You get a token at the end. But yeah, that's the 1 second. Alrighty, back. So we'll continue. No, we are looking for a way to remove tokens that use singular to revive trans to Hydra's linked destination and use Hydra disassemble and create Neo 10. One draw becomes singular. Remove tokens that use singularity to revive transcode to Hydra's linked destination. I believe that's a co-link. Okay. So I think he's just noting that the difference here is you would you make singularity first, then use singularity to revive the transcode, and then make VLAN Hydra to attribute the transcode, and then you can make terahertz. What's interesting about this token, there's nothing too crazy about it, but just keep in mind if you get evenly matched, which you shouldn't be in this deck, because Superfactorial deals with evenly matched so well. You just summon Laplacian, you either snipe the evenly matched, or they or you have diameter negate, and you have the save worm in the graveyard as well. But just keep in mind if you have a token face up, evenly matched is forced to banish everything except for the token. So you could just lose your board potentially. Defender +1, so I imagine that's not that interesting. Defender +2. So 2 Firewall Dragon. So co-linked Firewall Dragon. So that's kind of interesting. We'll take a look, but I don't think I'm ever realistically making this combo. Yeah, so yeah, you need Firewall Exceed. Okay, so where this could come up, not this end board, but the situation, I think the sequence he's doing correctly is correct. What I found, if I opened Firewall Defensor plus Parallel Exceed, you just, what's called, you normal summon Defensor, and then if they ash you, you can chain Parallel Exceed as Chainlink 3, and then you would just do the Parallel Exceed combo. So that actually has happened to me before. But they ashed the Defensor, and then they got goobed by the Parallel Exceed. So let's just keep going. But if I'm not trying to knock this combo or anything. But I don't know if this is realistic. All right. Pretty poggers combo. 1 second. Alrighty. So we return. Alright, if you preserve Daron's effect and use a trigger that loses 1 draw because of the Heat Soul. So I know Daron is Alan Bershin. If you preserve Alan Bershin's effect and uses a trigger that loses 1 draw because of the Heat Soul, used to activate Singularity disappears, you can turn 1 draw into a trigger. I'll be honest. I'm not too sure what he's pointing out, but only because I'm not paying too much attention to this combo. I don't feel like I'm ever gonna use this ever. So I mean, I should probably do my due diligence to understand. But I'll be honest. I think I am I am too dumb for this high level gameplay. So circular only. So he has a little star. So this is something I've done before, but I've mentioned before that I stop at Firewall, add back. So I'll say I stop at Firewall, add back a hand trap or something like that. So we just revive. There's the Protectcode combo. So yeah, so we add back circular. So I think the intent is to special summon circular with Firewall. Yeah. Ah, you have to use Dotscaper with just circular. So I haven't actually done this, but obviously if you drew Dotscaper, yeah, I mean this is still impressive though. No, I feel like circular tracks too many hand traps for me to. So I haven't actually done this, but it's still good to know. All right, circular +2. Oh my god, this is circular plus plus parallel exceed. Let's watch it. Let's see. Do we have any more? Circular plus defensor. So now we're getting into, again, this is like, this is good to know. We'll just do it for posterity. Yeah, you have to make that. So you have to make the Owl Mirage there. So to go into the Protectcode line. Oh my goodness. So this is pretty similar. So then you just have terahertz with a token, right? Oh, okay. So I think earlier there was that combo where he's, oh, that's a V-Link. Let's that's crazy. Oh my goodness. Please stop. This is a V-Link. That's super funny. That's why he uses Owl Mirage in the first place. He could always use Linger Evil, but this is a V-Link. It's not quite a true V-Link because this card points up, but it's still funny. You know, it screws up stuff like Dark that needs to link summon, special summon to its link point, and then Dark points down. I've never done this. I'll be honest. But it's good to know. You know, they could just normal summon things, threats in this. But I suppose you can just special summon with Super Factorial and protect the Linger Ebo. But yeah, that's cute. That makes sense why it's notable. But all right, due to Hydra, the number of monsters increases by 1. Yes, yes. And Linger Ebo is attached. There's a trade-off relationship between the mutual number of Firewall Dragon and Linger Ebo, but I personally think that Linger Ebo, which can take care of the antagonist, and Top Bubble Shadow is better. I believe the antagonist is evenly matched, and Top Bubble Shadow is impermanence. Honestly, I don't think evenly matched. Like, yeah, the Linger Ebo plus evenly matched concept. I don't know if I really. This is true. Linger Ebo, you can use it now to negate evenly matched. But they use their battle phase. You have to save worm. You have Laplacian hand rip, and you have diameter negate. So it's nice that you can just use Linger Ebo. But I don't know. I just yeah. I see what he means by a trade-off. This is only co-linked to one this isn't a, well, it is V-Link. It's only co-linked to Singularity. Because terahertz is not point down. Okay. So I imagine this is kind of similar. So circular plus defensor. Yeah, pretty similar route. And he ends up with the same thing. Same concept. The attack power of the defensor is lowered by the effect of subtraction. Ah, yes. So if we look at that, I think what happens is lowered by the effect of subtraction, and the number of monsters increases by 1 due to Hydra converting to Owl Mirage and Linger Ebo attached. So I imagine subtraction plus defensor. Well, that's one of the things why I like subtraction as an extender. It's probably one of the best Mathmech extenders, like with a Mathmech name, better than addition, because first, when you lower your attack opponent's monster, that's more expected to linger around as, like, you know, as a stat than boosting your one monster by 1,000 and then using it as link material. So the stat lowering of subtraction is more sustained. And, you know, it lowers your threshold for some OTKs versus addition, which you have to hold it at the end of a combo when you're trying to OTK and then boost it by attack. Because oftentimes, if you're using it as an extender, then you're not using addition as a link material or whatever you boost as a link material. Whereas with subtraction, you can use it as link material no matter what. So the fact that he mentions this, I've had this happen before, where I special summon Defensor. I normal summon Defensor, and I special summon Subtraction, and then I just go directly into Owl Mirage, because Subtraction modifies your stats. So you're below 1,000 or less attack, and you're a normal summon monster, and you're eligible for Owl Mirage. There's a trade-off, but it's better to use antagonistic or top foam shadow. Personally, I think Linger Ebo is better because he can take care of her. I'm not sure what this pronoun is referencing, but I imagine it's these two cards. All right. So let's take a look. Circular plus Defensor. Yeah. Oh, okay, I see. So I think I see. That's how he sequences the subtraction. This is good to know, actually. Just in general, I don't know about the Link Karibo, the V-Link he's going to end up in. Yes. Yes, Karibo. There we go. See? So this is the line I just mentioned. So he basically, before he uses saved his normal summon for Defensor, but he also made sure he had Subtraction in hand. So Subtraction is the GOAT. Subtraction is really good. It's kind of interesting how you can create two seemingly identical cards in Subtraction and Addition, but there's one that has more what makes the difference is the interactions it has with different cards, whether it's your opponent's or your own. It's always good to keep in mind in Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, sometimes things seem the same, but there's interactions I feel like dictate what makes a card good. Anyway, that's a tangent. So this is good to know. Just by principle, I don't really think I'm going to use this for an end board, but it could be useful in like going second or something like that, or when sequencing. So he's gonna add back. Yeah, we're gonna see V-Land Tribute. We've seen this story before. That is so funny, this V-Link. Yeah. Alrighty. I don't know what these recommendations are. Second attack, 1 kill. So this is the Crystal Heart combo. If you're not familiar with that, we might as well take a look. It's basically you have 3 monsters, and let's just watch it. So now you have 3 monsters, and you have to Sewer Factor, I fear. So now you're just gonna go into Link Climb that ends on Crystal Heart. And then you're gonna have a Link 3 in the main monster zone and 2 extra bodies that you're gonna make terahertz. So there's Crystal Heart, and see there's your Link 3 because Crystal Heart revives it, and then you just need 2 random monsters afterwards. And then yeah, you convert it to Earth, and that's 6100. He gets piercing. That's good to know. If you're new to the deck, you learn something. This is the 1 kill method that has the most cards that can be taken care of. So basically, yeah, I agree. This is literally the most useful OTK available, and it happens in so many situations. And in actual battles, this is most often aimed at. Go's care can also be done. I don't know what Go's is. Is that Droll? Was he saying like this is possible and then cross it out? Is most often aimed at. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how I feel. However, if monsters with high stats are lined up, such as Mirror Jade plus Bestial, that's what another word for Beasted is another translation for Bestial. It may not be possible to get 1 kill. So basically, if your opponent's stats, whether it's attack and defense, total more than 4,200, you cannot. Like Mirror Jade has 2,500 defense and 3,000 defense. So you better hope the other monster has. If it's an attack, the other monster should either have 1,000 defense or 1,200 defense, or if it's a defense, it better have 1,700 defense or attack. So this is not always, but obviously a Bestial has 2,000 defense and 2,500 attack. So these two together, very difficult to OTK through. And I agree. So now he has this combo, the Singular Access combo. So this is the one where you link summon into terahertz. I'm sorry, into access code using Singularity as link material. Nice. All right. So now we start the Link Climb. Yeah. So the trick is, you realize that the trick here is Singularity can revive any monster, but if it revives a Link 3, a 3+1 is always access code. So anytime you have a Link 3 and random monster, it's always access code. So that's something that enlightened me about this deck. It's good to, look at these. It's good to look at these, what's called, these secondary sources, other people who play the deck, because you'll learn something. And I learned that, yeah, this is a completely valid way. In fact, check this out. You have a little lingerie bow protecting you from imperm. The other thing that's good to know is that this singularity can bounce the Mirror Jade, or a Druid Swarm, and then and then you can pop the rest. So you get removals this way. While dealing with the board, use Root, Singularity, and Access, which are used when monsters with high stats are lined up as mentioned above. You may be able to save Lingeribo by using Alan Bershin's Tribute effect, which aims for a 1 kill 8300. By using... So... I think instead of Link summoning Terahertz... Oh, I understand now. So instead of Link triggering Singularity by Link summoning Lingeribo, you can use Alan Bershin's Tribute effect to trigger it instead. Yeah. So let's see. We're almost done with the article. I didn't expect it to be this long, but there's a lot of good stuff. And if you made it through the end, I'm super happy because there's just a lot to learn here. So circular induced penetration expansion. I assume penetration is playing through hand traps. But I'm assuming. I don't know what induced means, but this is a 12 combo. Circular plus 2, so 2 bodies. So now we're getting to the good stuff. So remember that I was like, who cares about a circular plus what's called parallel exceed making a V-link? I don't care about that. Can it play through hand traps? Now that's so. Foam is imperm, Veiler is Veiler, and Urara is Ash Blossom. So let's check this out. So this is the good stuff. Now this is what justifies, builds like these. So yeah, you have imperm installation here. So if they Veiler here, I think that's what this is substituting. Then you should be able to combo. So he chalice himself to simulate Veiler. So you go into Splash, Decode. Yeah, I love this. Honestly, you don't even need to get to the Singularity. Just the fact that you can end on Terahertz through a hand trap is very strong already. So you don't need 2 hand traps. You don't need 2 extenders, theoretically. You would just need 1. But this is good to know. A development in which what's called Alan Bershin received one of these 3 hand traps. Imperm, Veiler, or Ash. So yeah, that's true. Okay. Circular plus Defensor, Imperm, Veiler, Ash. So we can look at this one. So this is just the same concept, but instead of Parallel Exceed, you just have Defensor. Alan Bershin, you get Veilered. Oh yeah, that always sucks. Sometimes you don't want to go into Alan Bershin immediately. Like let's say you have a Parallel Exceed or something. You don't want to do that immediately because if this gets impermed, it's a Cybers monster, but it doesn't have a level for you to go into like Lingeribo or something. And you can't tribute this because it just got negated. But it's not a problem here because you're pretty much intentionally telling your opponent, oh, this is my only play. But then you follow up with Defensor, which makes, Cybers kind of a frustrating deck to deal with because, when they play in a certain way, they're kind of this play is pretending to be like a limping dog, and then they take the bait and you pretty much Shimon them with your actual starter. It's not too dissimilar than what Snake Eye does with Snake Eye Ash, and then follow up with what's her face, Diabellstar. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. That's something I need to keep in mind. When I get to the point when I normal summon Defensor, make Splash Mage. Don't make a Link 1. There's no reason to make a Link 1 when you have 2 bodies that just go into Splash Mage to trigger trigger Defensor. All right. Yeah, that's impressive. you can play through a hand trap and end on singularity plus terahertz. And it didn't require anything too crazy. That's something that most regular builds can already do. And that's kind of like one of the amazing things about Defensor, because it's almost so close to card quality as Circular. So close. But obviously I think it's a bit way more balanced. So this is how you combo under draw when you have 2 extenders. All right, exceed. That makes sense. You don't want to banish your Sigma. You're not going to go into Allen Burschen here, because when you go into Allen Burschen, it can't detach or activate because draw is applied. Yeah, this sequence is so good under draw. I've done it a bunch of times as well. In fact, if you notice here, 2800 plus 3000 plus 2300, I've used this to OTK a lot. And you don't even have, when you're going second, this is 8100 damage, and this firewall can bounce too. So this is also another thing to keep in mind, why I like this package. It's not just your turn 1 board, but it actually is improving your board going second, which is something I don't think this guy covers in his article. It's just something I kind of naturally, through enough practice, figured out. I mean, obviously you can't cover everything in one article, but it's good to know that there's emergent things that I can discover while learning someone else's deck. So yeah, Singularity. He still had his normal summon. Okay, that's impressive. I've never actually done this. Part of it is Droll is not popular in this format. But something to keep in mind is you can Droll yourself to achieve the same outcome. And this could come up when you're facing versus Maxi, and you're just like, okay, I'm going to give them 1 draw off Maxi, and I'm just going to not care. And unfortunately he doesn't get super factorial, but he does have 2 bounces. Yeah, he has 2 bounces off Singularity, Firewall, and he has a Save Worm. If he had Aggregator, this would be very, very close to being like, a solid end board that deals with a lot of things. So yeah, this is impressive. Also, I should take notes on this. But yeah, so even though Droll's not popular, if you can Droll yourself in a format where Droll is good, then this is this combo environment can be simulated in that fashion. This is a reproduction of the situation where the opponent shoots Maxi and nullifies, and you nullify Maxi with Droll. In fact, okay, cool. We're of 2 minds. It converts Droll to Almirage and activates Singularity's effect. This is a reproduction of a situation where you throw Droll at Maxi during a temporary truce. That's kind of a funny way to call it. So you get 1 draw and I get my board. You get 1 draw, I lose super factorial, but I get my full board. Circular Defensor with Draw applied. It should be something pretty similar. I don't want to go through all these combos, but it should be similar. Like +2 bodies. Defensor is still 2 bodies. I mean, it's good to... I would recommend you check these out. A deployment in which the opponent shoots G and nullify G with Droll. Reproducing a situation where you throw Droll at max C during a temporary truce. The number of mutual Firewall Dragons increased by 1 compared to before. You know what? We're just going to take a look. Because I mean, what I'm understanding is it's co-linked. Alright, cool. So we've seen this. Alright. We're going crazy. Alright, we got to the tribute transcode. Okay, so I think in the previous combo, this firewall did not have 2 bounces, it had only 1. And now it has 2 bounces here, while it's co-linked to terahertz, which points to the side, and singularity, which points down. Alright, I think we're done. I think we're almost done. Afterward. By adopting V-Line Hydra, we can now move towards singularity terahertz from the initial response. So I imagine that's turn 1. To be honest, I think it is almost upwardly compatible with existing Protectcode type, so it seems like a new deployment plan is fatal. I plan to use this deployment unless I find any flaws. Thank you for viewing this far. Yeah, I thank you for this article. I think it's very informative. It talks about the basics very well. It doesn't... I mean, it pretty much teaches you some ideas, and Google Translate was a decent, I had to use my own inferences and my understanding from like reading a bunch of Google translated OCG Twitter posts So I'm sort of, translating as well. But no, I think this is a great, guide. I'll link it in the description if you want to take a look. The combos are there. And I just wanted to create, more exposure to, this guy is a fantastic player, and the fact that he discovered this, I think, needs more eyes on it. I can't just be the only arbiter of this guy's build. If it looks interesting, I would suggest you try it. It seems like, it's not something that you're going to pick up immediately and, understand. If you really want to understand the deck, it's something that I feel like you want to dedicate and learn. Keep at it for a few, I don't know, give it a fair shake, I would say. If it doesn't make sense to you the first try, that's a good thing, I think. Being in unfamiliar territory, it's like the best learning opportunity. Anyway, Freedume, thank you for your article. Thank you for your insight. It's very, it's pretty rare when you get something as, detailed as this. I'm kind of riffing off of this and adding my insight from having played the build for like the past 3 months. But I hope, this is a good record. If you watched till the end, yeah, leave a comment. If you found something interesting, you learned something, definitely share it. This doesn't make sense for me to keep to myself, in my opinion. I want to, want this guy to have a lot more exposure, and because this build is awesome. Like, the concept, I really like. You don't have to go too hard into the combos. I kind of, but maybe my philosophy is just my uncertainty of committing to these long combos for fear of being interrupted or something like that. So I don't think I've fully mastered this deck after practicing, but I think, from reading his article, I'm starting to get a deeper understanding of what's going on. Anyway, that's all I have. Thanks for watching.